Welcome, Reverend Pam Reynolds.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. That sets it up, and could we have a little boy? That was his song that they just did. Nkosi was born in 1989 in a small village in South Africa. He never knew his father, and he was born HIV positive. When his mother could no longer care for him, Gail Johnson adopted him. Medicine helped, but if you can put yourself back in the late 1980s and you know what we felt about AIDS, the fear about AIDS, the worry about AIDS, can I touch somebody with AIDS? That was a major fear. And when he was enrolled in school, at first the school denied him enrollment because they were concerned about the HIV. Well, it caused quite a political furor. And it went up quite a ways politically, and then it came back with no, the Constitution of South Africa forbids discrimination based on health. So he was able to attend school. And with the help of medicine, he had kind of a sort of a normal childhood. He was able to participate with his friends and have something of a good life for someone so young. Now, the reason we know about him is that he did a lot of speaking. And he was a keynote speaker at the 13th International AIDS Conference, where he spoke out and encouraged people with HIV and AIDS to be open about the disease and to seek equal treatment. He said, "Care for us and accept us. We are all human beings. We are normal. We have feet. We can walk. We can talk. We have needs just like everyone else. Don't be afraid of us. We are all the same." And in this song, apparently one of his phrases was, "Do all you can with what you have and the time you have and the place you are. Do all you can." He was known as an ambassador for those with AIDS. He died at 12. Oh, I know. That's why I had to have a cute picture of him up there to say he was a normal, cute kid who was born into this situation, but he took the situation and he didn't let it get him down. Imagine being that young and being able to say, no matter what's happening in your life, do all you can, whatever you can, where you are. And if you have a year or 10, just do it. Well, this is 1 week after Easter. It's only a week ago. How'd that happen? And I got to thinking about what that meant to me. And of course, in Unity, we really celebrate the empty tomb, the resurrection, not so much the crucifixion as the resurrection as being that eternal life and that demonstration of eternal life. But I got to thinking about Jesus, and I thought, with Jesus, when he was alive, people would not have looked at him and said, he's living a successful life. At the time, he was born in a kind of small village out kind of over there. Nazareth wasn't anything to speak about. His father was a worker, we say a carpenter, but he may have been a worker with stone. But he did construction. They did not own land, which meant that in that hierarchy in those days, they were pretty low down, that they didn't own land, and they were probably pretty much living hand to mouth. He was an average man. And then he went out to teach and to preach, and yes, he healed people and he taught, and we look back and say, that was fantastic. But at the time, although they certainly enjoyed his healing, not everybody truly understood his teachings. And then his life was ended as a common criminal. When we look back, if we were in that time, would we say his life was successful? No. It looked like a real failure. It looked like a total failure. But yet we know 2,000 years later that his life had great meaning. He was an example of love and an example of forgiveness. In the Gospel of John, he said, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." Think about it. Doesn't that just sum up his life? Love one another as I have loved you, which was unconditionally. Unconditionally. Emily Cady says in God at Present Help, the law of love must be the law of giving, the law of ministration to others, not from a sense of duty, but from spontaneity and delight. So, question for you this morning, 1 week after Easter. Do you consider your life successful and fulfilling? How are we judging our lives? By how much stuff we have? By our career, by our jobs, by our money, by our ethnicity, by whatever else? Where in our lives do we feel successful, and where do we feel like maybe we'd like to do a little work on it? Now, Jesus loved everybody by seeing the Christ within. One of the first things that always comes to my mind is a leper would come up to him. Now, first of all, a leper wasn't supposed to be with regular people. Well, they could be stoned or something. I mean, it's like, because they didn't understand that it was a bacterial infection. They didn't have antibiotics. They didn't know what it was, didn't have a way to treat it. And they were very frightened of it. In those days, medical science wasn't too great. But we know that Jesus touched these people. We know that he didn't have a conversation with them about what the doctors have said or what the prognosis was or any of that. It was really, do you want to be healed? And he would touch them, and he would look past the mortal limitations. You know, in the invocation, Fillmore says mortal limitations. You look past that appearance, and he saw the truth of who they were. He saw that perfection. He saw their godness. He saw the Christ within, and he touched that and called it forth, which called forth the healing, because we all have that ability within ourselves to manifest that healing. Jesus could do it instantly. It took Myrtle a couple of years. It takes the rest of us sometimes a little longer, but it doesn't mean it's not there, and an essential part of who we are. I quoted this earlier in the meditation, and some of you may have caught it because I know there's a dedicated group here of Course in Miracles students. A Course in Miracles says, love is the foundation of our being. We don't have to strive for it. It's who we are. It's the foundation. It's us. It's there. What is this love that Jesus was talking about? Love one another as I've loved you. And how do we live it? See, it's not just the big things. It's in all the little things, the day-to-day things. I think a life well lived is a life of love. Surely Paul and his followers wrestled with this question. You may understand that what we have of Paul's letters are answers. We don't have the questions. They were writing to him from the various churches that he founded with complain, you know. And no doubt somebody said, what does that mean to love? You know, this person is and this person and that person and that person. And we know his answer. It is so well known from 1 Corinthians, but I'll read it anyway. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. I say it's a way of life. It's patient. when you get cut off by somebody in the freeway. It's patience when you get behind that person in that line in the checkout. Yeah. There have been many times when I've just stood there, and sometimes I haven't felt very well, and I really needed to sit down or whatever, and I've just thought, I've said to myself, I can be patient. I can give them this gift of patience. I don't know what's going on in their life, but right now, I can be patient. I can be forgiving. I might say a little prayer for them. I might have my wallet ready to get out a little money to help them make up the difference if that's the problem. But that would be an act of love as well. Jesus loved through service. He gave, and he gave. And he never asked for anything in return, but yet we know that he was well provided for. He was always fed. He always found a place to sleep. He was welcomed into homes. The women ministered to him. Apparently there were some wealthy women who understood his message and appreciated that he treated them as equals. That unconditional love, no judgment. It was like, you're a woman, I can't have anything to do with you. You're a woman, I can't treat you equally. Imagine being accepted as an equal and unconditionally accepted. Not accepted only when or only if, but accepted right now. And we, every day in our interactions with others, can accept people in that way. I mean, sometimes you have to take a deep breath. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. Especially with family members, right? Or co-workers, or sometimes neighbors. And to just take that breath and say, I'm not walking a mile in their shoes. I don't know what's going on for them today. And even maybe I do know what's going on, but I can step back and I can go back to the truth of who I am as love. And I can put aside my whining, my resentments, my frustrations for just this minute and meet them as the Christ to the Christ. Because maybe that's exactly what they need today. Now, I don't think any of us feel like we're going to go out and start healing the sick and raising the dead, but I just want to share with you what Emma Curtis Hopkins taught Charles and Myrtle and her other students about this. She said, as a divine mind which I am, I preach the gospel, heal the sick, cast out passions, raise the dead. I work the works of God who works through me to will and to do that which ought to be done by me. She sent her students out with those words. She felt that after they had studied the 12 lessons with her, they were ready to go out and do that. And then she went on to say, if we speak of preaching the gospel, we mean telling the world of the spiritual kingdom, speaking from the absolute standpoint. In other words, the standpoint of there's only one presence and one power, God is. And she said, if we tell of healing the sick, we do not mean that there are sick people. What? We mean that we see people more nearly as they are, just as Jesus did. You're not a leper. You're a perfect child of God who just happens to have this appearance of leprosy, but it's not the truth of who you are. And I can see past that appearance. Carol Graham, on more than one occasion, as she went through the drive-through window at Starbucks, very often the cashier would say, no charge, person ahead of you paid it forward. And once in a while, she was the one that paid it forward. But one morning, she says she glanced in her rearview mirror and saw a very attractive woman in a sports car with the top down, and she looked like she could well afford her own coffee. You can just kind of know what's going on. Well, she can afford coffee, I can hardly afford mine. But a voice inside her said, pay for her coffee. Really? pay for her coffee. So even though she felt like she could hardly afford it, she paid the server. And then she parked her car over in the little parking area and ran in to run an errand. And when she came out, that woman in her sports car was parked right next to her waiting for her. And she said to Carol, "You don't know how much that meant to me. My husband and I may have to declare bankruptcy. Our business partners swindled us out of all of our holdings. It couldn't have happened at a worse time. We lost our 26-year-old son to cancer last month." She said, "I was so angry, I didn't know what to do, didn't know if I could go on. I needed a sign. You're paying for my coffee was my sign." Then Carol said she was the one fighting back tears and told her that she could relate to her, that in fact she too had recently lost her son, and they also had lost their business to partners who stole from them. They talked for a few minutes, exchanged numbers, and Carol realized that in that giving she had received so much. Don't you just love the pay it forward stories? Well, this one I wanted to share because she listened. God, how do I share my love? How do I be who I'm here to be? It's about listening. It's about listening to that divine wisdom within us that says, that nudges us, pay for the coffee. Don't judge by appearances. Pay for the coffee. Look past, just be willing to give, and give without attachment, give without expectation. Just be willing to give. How many of you have been watching Victoria on KPBS? Well, you guys, good. Thank you. Thank you. Well, if you've been watching it, you've had a glimpse of London of the 1800s. It was pretty bad. Not one of us would want to go back in time to be a common, ordinary person in that London. I mean, it was awful. Disease, poverty, filth, poor sanitation. They highlighted some of this in some of the programs. And Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's cousin and husband, saw these things. And that was kind of unusual in those days because, you know, the rich people kind of kept to themselves and the poor people, well, they were kind of on their own, and that was just sort of too bad, and they didn't have much sympathy or support or anything, kindness for them. But Albert did. And in his brief time as her prince consort, he tried to do what he could to alleviate that suffering and that poverty. And really he started something, because once he pointed it out, they couldn't really look away anymore. Because after all, Prince Albert was pointing it out. So in the 1800s, during the reign of Queen Victoria, a young man named William Booth climbed a hillside overlooking the city of London. He knelt in the grass, opened his Bible, and prayed. "Father, I know there are men with greater intellect than William Booth, and I know there are men with greater courage than William Booth. And I know there are men with greater ability than William Booth. But Father, I promise you this day that you shall have all the courage and all the intellect and all the abilities of William Booth. You shall have all there is of William Booth." You think you don't know this man? Just wait. Booth went down from that hillside into the filthy, grimy streets of London, a transformed man with a renewed mind. Over the years that followed, Booth administered to the needs of thousands of physically and spiritually broken men and women of London. His ministry grew and spread to encompass all of England, then all of Europe, and then spread to America. Today, anybody know this one? the Salvation Army. Still takes the message of hope and wholeness to a broken world. God, I don't know what to do, but use me. Take all of who I am and use me. I don't think he came down off that hillside with the vision, and picture of Salvation Army fully formed in his mind. But what he did know is that he could serve. He could allow God to use him. He could be used by God, and God would direct him, just like Carol, pay for her coffee. William, go do this. Pam, go do that. In the song that Jack did for us, there's a line that says, Holy Mother in India, helping the sick and poor. Somebody asked, why do you do these things? And she said, this is what I came here for. And she said, in a Time magazine interview, I am like a little pencil in his hand. That is all. He does the thinking. He does the writing. The pencil has nothing to do with it. The pencil has only to be allowed to be used. God, use me. Show me a way for my life to be totally successful, totally fulfilling, in the most meaningful way, having nothing to do with dollars or status or any of that. Use all of me, God. Now, the interesting thing that happens when we pray that prayer is our life gets better and better and better, as long as we're allowed to let God direct the pencil, which means we can't take it back. We say, okay, God, do this. I had the opportunity a little over, I guess about 2 weeks ago, to see the musical Diana down at La Jolla Playhouse. I didn't want to go. I know her story. Oh, come on. Why am I going to pay money to go down and see this? Well, I listened because I got this message, go. I did. I had a wonderful time. It was a fabulous, fabulous production. I cannot give it enough kudos, enough stars. It was beautiful. And in the program, and we know Princess Diana and all she did, the landmines, the AIDS and all that, she said, I think the biggest disease this world suffers from in this day and age is the disease of people feeling unloved. And I know that I can give love for a minute, for half an hour, for a day, for a month, but I can give. I'm happy to do that, and I want to do that. Can we give love for a minute? Can we give love for 5 minutes? My aunt, who's a practicing Catholic, and I think very unity, but I'd never say that. She had a priest she dearly loved. They were so happy with him, and I realized that as I read his talks, because he was very practical, and in Unity we say we are practical Christianity. Father Bill Mobley taught practical Christianity. And every Sunday as a benediction to his parishioners, he would say, go and make love with every piece of life you touch. Yeah. Go and make love with every piece of life you touch. Go and make love. I'm going to let her take her picture because we got another slide. Because I just want to end with Nikosi's words. No, we're not going to suddenly become Jesus Christ and heal everybody we see, although we might like to. But there's so much that we can do when you think that Jesus was really just being himself. But he had this incredible realization of who he was. He was spiritually awake, totally spiritually awake, and living from that. We just ask to be more spiritually awake. God, I'm willing to wake up. God, use me so that my life might be truly successful and fulfilling and a blessing to others. And so, as Nkosi Johnson said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, and the place you are. Do all you can. God bless.